Well, welcome back to Show Me the Money Rugby League TV, and a bit of a sombre and reflective, and also a show that is going to remember a very important person, certainly to the sport of rugby league, and also on a personal and emotional level to my good friend Craig Show Me the Money Harrison. And it's just been announced whilst we've been recording the full 80 minutes and some of our other shows, that with great sadness, the Leeds Rhinos have learnt of the passing of their former Chief Scout Bob Pickles, who passed away earlier this morning, aged 80, after a period of ill health. Now, a lot of people will know who Bob Pickles was and what he meant to not just Leeds but the sport of rugby league. He was widely regarded as one of the best scouts in the game, having worked with Leeds since the late 80s and early 90s, when the coach at the time, Doug Laughton, brought him to Headingley. And you know, when you look at that sort of roll call of players that he's gone out and scouted and ultimately, you know, have been allowed to nurture and develop at Leeds, none more so than Kevin Sinfield, Rob Burrow, Ash Handley, Danny McGuire, Ryan Hall, you know, Chev Walker, amongst hundreds upon hundreds of players that have made that transition from the community to the professional game. He was a former player himself, having played with Hunslet and Keighley, so he certainly knew what to look for in those playing attributes. And you know, from everybody here, myself, Michael, Craig, Joe, we send our deepest condolences to Bob's family and friends and the sport of rugby league. Clearly, he meant a lot to a lot of people. Craig.
Yeah, Robert. I used to call him Robert sometimes when we used to get in some deep debates with Bob or Robert, and then condolences to the family. John Bastin introduced me years ago to Bob, and he was a bit of a myth, Bob. He'd be like that. How can I put it? If you met Chief Scouts, and we'll have a laugh at this because Bob were a character, so we try and, in such a sadness, let me give you a little bit of magic. Bob, he was this myth, and he'd see Bob on side of pictures. Joe does loads of this now, so people get used to each other. So Bob had that Leeds jacket on, so very proud Scouts. All the Scouts wear the jackets, but he'd watch it. Bob Pickles would see it, and speaking to some of the players like Danny McGuire, who I've had obviously for a lot of years, they were waiting for Bob to come round that corner. If Bob Pickles came to that ground and you were 14-year-old and Bob Pickles was in that ground, you was seeing the chance of getting to the great Leeds Rhinos. He was your link in to that type of thing. So Bob became like a legend and a myth. And when I got introduced to him, he's like, "Oh, young man, don't you be agents for picking my players, you know, and this and that." And all stood up for, I've never seen, I have seen it, maybe John. When you put Leeds DNA, Simon Bell, you get what it means to him for Leeds Rhinos. Bob Pickles were right on that. I'm telling you, you ever got into a debate with Bob, it were like Simon and John, you've no chance if you mention anything derogatory towards Leeds, or if it's like, we are this, he was so proud of what Leeds had done. Bob will be remembered, and I hope, you know, we all get the things. I had a feeling Bob had rip thingy, because we had a bit of an hug at one of the Leeds games recently, and I saw in his eyes, and he gave me some stick. He always give me a bit of stick. You've missed this one. You've missed this one. Hey, you need to keep an eye on that one. It's like the old racing tips to you. You just remind him that you won't see Bob Pickles again. Honestly, you won't see many a game who could do the games he did. And the character he was, but my bona fide would be his loyalty to Leeds and loyalty to that system. And I think when he finally walked away from the Leeds job, I think it broke his heart, Mick. I'm sure his missus would tell you that, and his family. He that was everything to him. And I think when you get to that age when they say, look, we put up, you know, different things, Bob has to go on. Gary Etherington had a massive, everybody respect. It'll be huge. But I'll leave it on this for Bob. He once did a podcast with me. Very hard to get Bob on a podcast. And it was what was the Martin Sadler one in the day?
Batcher.
It was your Australia friend who did it, Steve.
Mascard.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we went to the Bingley Arms. And I said to Bob, make sure you come. And we had Bob, Steve Gill, me and Steve. We gave Steve the script and we hit the show. And Bob were a character, so Bob had been thinking, what's for dinner? He'll be looking at you and saying, are you going to eat dinner in? And I'm trying to order some chips and pie for us and a bit of crack. And Bob's saying, and we got into this debate. And Steve, one of the questions was, who is the best player that you have either let go or you brought? And Steve Gill took him 10 minutes, Steve, and he went, I'll be honest with you, he said, the greatest one is Darren Clark. I spotted him at 16. And I thought, that's not a bad one to throw in, his current man of steel. It was like, I think I threw in Ben Curry, or what I talked about Ben Curry at that. And it was like, all eyes were on Bob. And he delivered, it's there on YouTube, he delivered the greatest. And he said, well done, guys, I like to think, he said, and, you know, there'd be a lot. And he did it, and I knew he was thinking of something. He went, there'll be a lot. He said, there's probably, 30, 40 internet, whatever. I thought, oof. And he went, but I'll be honest with you, based on what you have said, he said, it's got to be, and I'm thinking, it's got to be Rob, Danny. Who is he going to throw? And he went, Adrian Morley. And I looked over and I thought, is he kidding? He spotted and he went, I brought him to Leeds and he talks about the story of everybody being at the game when Morley broke through, and he said he had to, and he'll tell you he had to do it in sec. He said it was literally, fuck hell, like this kid he thinks they've all missed has just put a performance up for his amateur club that was of a level he could not believe. He's gone back and he's ringing Gary, whoever it were at the time, might have been Dougie or whatever we can do, we've got to get this kid. He said he turned up week after to watch him. And he was sat there and he said, Wigan or Warrington or whatever come past him. They said, we're all here to see Morley. We're all here to see this young kid from Salford, Manchester, Morley. And he said, Bob said, I sat there and he said, they were saying, we're going to go and see his mum and dad. And Bob said, you know that feeling? I said, what's that, Bob? He said, we got a 3-year deal in pocket. They didn't know, he said, but I did. He'd already done the deal, do you get me? And he said it was the greatest feeling. And I tell you think I'm kidding. Bob would go wherever, there's a better place, but he'd still be thinking about them deals. So, legend. I can't, probably one of my favourite people. I think I enjoyed, learned me a lot. Bob, he used to give me some stick, but by God, he's a massive loss with Robert, absolutely. And rest in peace, Bob, legend, absolute legend, and not one of them people who come off the top of your lips. You'll know, Joe, wouldn't you? You, if I said Bob to you, even as a young kid, he'd always come to our family, wouldn't he? He'd always have a, hey, have you seen this kid play? And if he were from Leeds, he was best ever. Honestly, Simon Belly took over, really, hadn't he? He'd say, I've got a young lad, what's that, Bob? He'd say, Liam Sutcliffe. He said, mate, he's going to play for England. And that was it. Bob were happy, so rest in peace, Bob.